You defended the man who ruined me. Those were the only words waiting for Ethan Caldwell after the greatest victory of his career. An hour earlier, the courthouse steps had been packed with cameras, microphones, and hungry reporters calling his name like it belonged on a monument. Ethan stood beneath the gray New York sky in a tailored black suit, one hand resting on the leather case that held his closing argument, while the city flashed around him in bursts of white light. "Mr. Caldwell, is it true you've never lost a case?" someone shouted. Ethan gave the smile people expected from him, calm, sharp, untouchable. "The facts won today," he said. The answer was perfect. Clean. Safe. Just like every answer he had ever given in public. Behind him, his client's family cried with relief. His partners clapped him on the shoulder. Somewhere online, by dinner, they would call him the alpha who never lost. One of the junior associates laughed and said, "Caldwell, you should frame this verdict." Another asked, "Is Noah meeting us at the office party?" Ethan answered without thinking, "He is probably already organizing the files." It sounded normal. Practical. The kind of answer that made people smile and move on. But the moment the words left his mouth, something hollow passed through him. Because Noah Bennett always waited near the last marble column by the courthouse doors, holding 2 paper cups of coffee, one black for Ethan and one too sweet for himself. He would pretend not to smile until Ethan came close, then quietly fix the knot of Ethan's tie, as if the world's most feared trial lawyer could survive cross-examination but not a crooked Windsor. Today, the column was empty. Ethan told himself Noah had gone back to the office. Maybe he was tired. The trial had lasted 7 weeks. Noah had been pale lately, quieter than usual, often pressing a hand to his stomach when he thought no one was watching. Ethan had noticed. Of course he had noticed. He had simply placed the concern in the same mental drawer as sleep, dinner, anniversaries, and all the other gentle things he promised to return to after the verdict. By the time Ethan reached the penthouse that night, Manhattan was glittering beneath the windows like a city made of evidence, each light cold and distant. He expected the soft scent of lavender detergent, the low hum of the dishwasher Noah ran before bed, the small blue bowl of soup Noah always left on the stove when Ethan forgot to eat. Instead, the apartment was silent. Not peaceful. Empty. Ethan stood in the entryway, his keys still in his hand, and understood something was wrong before he saw the envelope. Noah's shoes were gone from beside the door. His cardigan was missing from the back of the chair. The mug with the chipped moon painted on it was no longer by the sink. It was strange how absence had a sound. A deep one. Like a courtroom after the judge has left and the sentence cannot be changed. Ethan walked past the living room. The blanket Noah used on cold nights was gone from the sofa. The half-finished puzzle on the coffee table had been packed away. Even the little bowl of lemon candies Noah kept for the doorman was missing. The apartment looked cleaner than usual, but not because someone had cared for it. Because someone had erased themselves carefully. The envelope sat on the kitchen island, white against black marble. Ethan opened it with the same steady hands that had opened witness files, plea agreements, sealed evidence. Inside were Noah's office badge, the spare key, a formal resignation letter, and one handwritten line pressed so hard into the paper that the ink had nearly torn through. "You defended the man who ruined me." Ethan read it once. Then again. The words did not rearrange themselves into something less impossible. His jaw tightened, not with anger, but with the first edge of a fear he had no language for. Noah was emotional, he told himself. Hurt. Exhausted. This was a misunderstanding. Ethan could fix misunderstandings. He had built an empire on fixing them. Then he saw the shirt folded beside the envelope. One of Noah's pale blue button-downs, the one he wore on long research nights, sleeves always pushed to the elbow. On the cuff, near the seam, was a small rust-colored stain. Ethan touched it with 2 fingers. It was dry. Real. Too small to explain anything, too loud to ignore. For the first time in his life, Ethan Caldwell had no argument ready. Ethan stayed in the kitchen long after midnight, standing beneath the soft recessed lights with Noah's blue shirt in his hands. The stain on the cuff had dried into the fabric like a secret that refused to be washed away. He told himself not to panic. Panic was for people who had no process. Ethan had a process for everything. When a witness lied, he checked the timeline. When a client withheld information, he found the missing document. When a judge leaned hostile, he adjusted his language, his posture, even the length of his pauses. But there was no legal strategy for an empty apartment. No precedent for the quiet where Noah used to be. Ethan placed the shirt down carefully, as if it might break, and reached for his phone. Noah's number sat at the top of his recent calls, surrounded by messages Ethan had not answered during trial prep. Small things. Did you eat? The dry cleaner closes at 7. I left your blue tie on the chair. Please call me when you can. There were older messages too, ones Ethan had skimmed between meetings and never answered. Your father called the office. He sounded tired, but he said he was proud of you. I paid the electric bill because you forgot again. I know you hate birthdays, but there is cake in the fridge. It is not a party if there are only 2 people and 1 candle. Ethan's thumb hovered over the screen. For the first time, he felt embarrassed by the record of his own silence. Not because anyone else could see it, but because Noah had lived inside that silence, waiting for a reply that never came. He called. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Noah's voice came through bright and soft, recorded months ago on a Sunday morning when he had laughed halfway through the greeting because Ethan had been making coffee behind him. Hi, this is Noah Bennett. I cannot come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I will get back to you soon. The word soon hit harder than it should have. Ethan ended the call without speaking. He tried again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. By the 5th call, his pride began to sour into something smaller and more human. Shame. He opened Noah's resignation letter and read it properly this time, not as evidence, not as a threat, but as a goodbye. It was professional, almost painfully neat. Noah thanked the firm for the opportunity. He apologized for the sudden departure. He said all pending research files had been organized by case number and saved to the internal drive. Even leaving, Noah had cleaned up after him. Ethan walked through the apartment slowly, noticing what he had not allowed himself to notice before. The blanket Noah used on movie nights was gone. The row of cheap herbal teas had disappeared from the cabinet, except for one unopened box of chamomile that Ethan had once bought by mistake. In the bathroom, Noah's toothbrush was missing, but the spare razor Ethan never remembered to replace was still there, new in its package. On the bedroom dresser, Ethan found the silver tie clip Noah had given him after his first major appellate win. He had forgotten to wear it today. Beneath it was a sticky note in Noah's handwriting, old and curled at the edge. For luck, even though you pretend you do not need it. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed and pressed the note between his fingers. His alpha instincts, usually disciplined into stillness, reached uselessly for the familiar comfort of Noah's scent. There was only the faintest trace left, lavender and rain, fading under the colder smell of untouched sheets. Then his phone buzzed. For one foolish second, Ethan thought it was Noah. It was not. It was Mara Vance, his senior associate. Her message was short. I found something strange in the Mercer file. Noah flagged it 3 days ago, but you told us to archive it. Ethan stared at the screen. The apartment seemed to tilt around him, not dramatically, not like a scene from a film, but in the quiet, sickening way a man realizes the floor beneath him was never solid. He typed back, "What did he flag?" Mara's reply came a few seconds later. A deleted email chain from Lily Moore. And a note from Noah. If Ethan ignores this, someone needs to ask why Grant Mercer is afraid of me. Ethan did not sleep. By 5:40 in the morning, he was already in his office on the 38th floor, the city. Still dark beyond the glass walls, his shirt sleeves rolled up, the Mercer file spread across his desk like a confession. Mara arrived with damp hair, no makeup, and 2 coffees balanced in a cardboard tray. She paused in the doorway when she saw him holding Noah's old research notes. You found it, she said quietly. Ethan did not look up. Why was this archived? Mara set the coffee down with careful hands. Because you said Noah was too close to the issue. The answer landed with no drama, which made it worse. Ethan remembered the moment at once. The conference room had been too warm. Grant Mercer had been smiling at the head of the table, all polished teeth and expensive cologne, while Noah stood by the screen with a folder clutched to his chest. Noah had said the email chain mattered. Ethan had said they were not building a case on instinct. Noah had gone very still, then nodded as if he had expected the pain and simply accepted it. Ethan had mistaken that silence for agreement. Now, in the blue light before sunrise, he understood it had been withdrawal. He opened the deleted email chain. Lily Moore had written to the firm 3 months earlier, asking for help, saying Grant Mercer had offered her money to disappear after a private settlement meeting. The language was cautious, frightened, full of gaps. But Noah had filled those gaps in the margin with neat observations. Why no police report? Why was Grant's driver paid cash that week? Why did Lily mention a second Omega witness? At the bottom of the page, Noah had written one sentence in pencil. He is not afraid of being accused. He is afraid of being recognized. Ethan's fingers tightened around the paper. Where did Noah get this? He asked. Mara looked away. He would not tell me. He said if you knew, you would try to stop him. That should have angered Ethan. Instead, it shamed him. His phone buzzed with a message from Grant Mercer's private number. 7 words appeared on the screen. Your Omega had a vivid imagination. Ethan stood so quickly his chair rolled back and struck the cabinet behind him. Mara flinched. He noticed and forced himself still. In court, his anger was a blade. Here, it was useless. He typed nothing back. Across the office, the elevator chimed. The doors opened, and for one impossible second, Ethan expected Noah to step out with his soft sweater sleeves pulled over his hands, carrying breakfast he would insist Ethan eat before coffee. But the hallway stayed empty except for the cleaning woman pushing a cart, humming under her breath. The memory came anyway, sharp and uninvited. 3 weeks earlier, Ethan and Noah had been trapped in that same elevator during a brief power outage. 8 minutes, maintenance had said through the speaker. Noah had laughed nervously, then pretended he was fine, though Ethan could smell the anxious edge under his lavender scent. Without thinking, Ethan had stepped between Noah and the mirrored wall, blocking the flickering emergency light from his face. Breathe with me, he had murmured, low enough that the camera would not catch the tenderness. Noah had looked up at him, eyes wide, and for a moment the entire world had shrunk to 6 square feet of steel, warm breath, and words neither of them dared to say at work. Noah had whispered, "You are different when nobody is watching." Ethan had wanted to answer. Instead, he had only looked at the camera in the corner, then stepped a little farther away. The lights came back. Ethan had stepped away first. Noah had smiled like it did not hurt. The memory faded, leaving Ethan in the cold office with Grant's message burning on his phone. Mara watched him carefully. "What do you want me to do?" Ethan looked down at Noah's pencil notes, at the careful loops of his handwriting, at all the places Noah had tried to save someone while Ethan had been busy winning. "Find Lily Moore," he said, "and pull every security record from the night Noah stayed late with the Mercer files." Mara hesitated. "Ethan, if Grant knows Noah found something, Noah may not have just left because of you." Ethan finally looked up. The first pale line of sunrise cut across his face like a verdict. "Then I am already too late for the only case that mattered." By noon, Ethan had learned that a missing person could leave behind more noise than a crowded courtroom. Noah's desk was the loudest part of the office. The chair was pushed in. The monitor was dark. A small ceramic fox sat beside the keyboard, wearing the ridiculous red scarf Noah had knitted during a snowstorm last winter. Ethan had teased him for it once, saying even office decorations did not need winter accessories. Noah had looked offended for exactly 3 seconds before tying a smaller scarf around Ethan's fountain pen. The memory almost made Ethan smile. Almost. Then he opened the bottom drawer and found it empty except for a roll of antacids, a packet of saltine crackers, and a grocery receipt from a pharmacy 6 blocks away. Mara leaned over his shoulder, saw the crackers, and said very softly, "He was eating those for breakfast all week." Ethan closed his eyes. He had been in the same building, 30 feet away most mornings, talking to judges, partners, clients, cameras, and Noah had been quietly surviving on crackers at his desk. "Did he say he was sick?" Ethan asked. Mara gave him the kind of look only a senior associate could give a man who had just discovered he was brilliant and deeply stupid at the same time. He said he was fine, which, when Noah said it, usually meant someone should ask again. It was not quite a joke, but it carried enough dry humor to keep the room from collapsing. Ethan breathed out once. I did not ask again. Mara's expression softened, and that made it worse than anger. Before she could answer, a junior paralegal appeared at the doorway holding a padded envelope. This came from building security, he said. You asked for late-night footage. Ethan took it. Inside was a flash drive and a printed incident log from the night before the verdict. The entry was brief. 11:42 p.m. Noah Bennett exited Archive Room B. 11:47 p.m. Grant Mercer entered East Corridor. 11:51 p.m. Camera disruption. 12:03 a.m. Noah Bennett left through service elevator. Ethan stared at the 12-minute gap until the numbers blurred. Mara's face went pale. That camera never goes down. Ethan was already moving. The security office smelled like burnt coffee and dust. The guard on duty, a broad beta named Carl, looked terrified when Ethan walked in. Mr. Caldwell, I swear, I sent the log. As soon as I saw it. Show me the footage before the disruption. Carl clicked through the file with shaking hands. The screen filled with the East Corridor. Noah appeared first, holding a file box against his chest, walking carefully, as if every step required thought. Ethan noticed the way he paused near the wall, one hand briefly pressing below his ribs. Then Grant Mercer entered the frame. No sound. Just Grant smiling, blocking the hallway with the casual confidence of a man used to doors opening for him. Noah said something. Grant leaned closer. Ethan's alpha instincts rose so sharply he had to grip the back of Carl's chair to keep from stepping toward a screen. Then, before the image cut to static, Noah lifted his chin. Small. Pale. Alone. But not afraid in the way Ethan expected. Defiant. The footage died. Ethan stood in the stale little room, listening to the security fan rattle, and realized the thing he had been avoiding since last night. Noah had not simply left him. Noah had been cornered by a truth Ethan refused to hear. And still, he had walked out with evidence in his arms. Carl cleared his throat. There is one more thing, sir. The service elevator camera kept recording audio by mistake. Ethan turned slowly. Carl clicked another file. For 3 seconds there was only static. Then Noah's voice came through, thin but steady. Tell Ethan I was wrong about one thing. Grant's voice answered, amused. What is that? Noah said. I thought he would choose me before it was too late. The audio ended, but Noah's last sentence stayed in the security room like smoke. Ethan did not ask Carl to replay it. He did not need to. Every word had already found its place under his skin. I thought he would choose me before it was too late. Mara drove him back to the penthouse because, for once, Ethan Caldwell was not fit to be behind the wheel. He sat in the passenger seat of her gray Honda, a car full of coffee cups, gym shoes, and a booster seat for her nephew, staring at the city through rain-streaked glass. New York moved around him like nothing had happened. A hot dog vendor argued with a cyclist. A woman in scrubs ran across the crosswalk holding a paper bag. Over her head, someone's golden retriever refused to step over a puddle. The ordinary life of other people felt almost cruel. You know, Mara said after 10 blocks of silence. Noah used to bring your dry cleaning in on Fridays. Ethan looked at her. I know. No, you do not. He picked it up because you once said your father wore wrinkled shirts to court after your mother left, and you never wanted to look like a man people could pity. Ethan looked away. That memory was not one he gave freely. He had mentioned it to Noah on a winter night 2 years ago, half asleep, after too much bourbon and a lost custody appeal that still haunted him. His mother had left when he was 9. His father, a public defender with tired eyes and cheap suits, had raised him in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens where the radiator hissed all night and dinner was often canned soup with saltines. His father had taught him 2 rules. Never let them see you need anything. Never lose where it matters. Ethan had built his whole life on those rules. Noah had spent 2 years quietly softening them. A spare umbrella by the door. Soup in the fridge. A birthday cupcake with one crooked candle because Ethan claimed he disliked parties. The blue tie on hard days. The silver tie clip for courage. None of it had looked like sacrifice at the time because Noah made care seem easy. That was the trick of gentle people. They carried weight so quietly that selfish people called it light. At the penthouse, Ethan went straight to the closet. Noah's half was almost empty, but on the top shelf, behind a stack of legal journals, he found a shoebox labeled in Noah's neat handwriting. Do not throw away, even if Ethan says clutter is a moral failing. The line was so painfully Noah that Ethan had to sit down before opening it. Inside were small pieces of their life. Movie stubs. A subway card from the night their car service cancelled, and Noah laughed as Ethan tried to look dignified on the F train. A receipt from a diner in Brooklyn where they had eaten pancakes at 2 in the morning after Noah won his first motion draft. A paper napkin from a courthouse cafeteria, where Noah had drawn a tiny judge with cat ears because Ethan said the hearing would be impossible to survive. And beneath it all, a photograph. Ethan at the kitchen counter, asleep over a case file, his cheek resting on his arm. Noah's handwriting on the back read, "He looks human when he sleeps." Ethan pressed the photo to his palm. Then he saw the folded letter at the bottom of the box, addressed but never given. "Ethan, if I become brave enough to say this out loud, please do not make it sound like evidence." He stopped breathing for a second, then unfolded it. Noah had written about being raised by an aunt who treated love like rent, something paid in usefulness. He wrote that working for Ethan had scared him at first because Ethan seemed like every powerful alpha who could make a room smaller just by entering it. Then Ethan had remembered he hated parsley. Ethan had walked on the street side of the sidewalk without announcing it. Ethan had once pretended not to notice when Noah cried in the copy room, but left a bottle of water and a pack of tissues by the printer. That was when Noah began to believe cold people could still be kind. The final line was unfinished. "I am afraid that one day I will need you, and you will decide I am inconvenient." Ethan folded over the letter, not because he was finished reading, but because the words had become unbearable. His phone buzzed on the floor beside him. A blocked number. He answered before the second ring. For a moment, there was only wind. Then Noah's voice, distant and tired. "Do not look for me, Ethan." Ethan closed his eyes. "Noah." A pause. Then the smallest breath. "I just wanted to know if you finally listened." Noah's voice was not angry. That made it harder. Anger would have given Ethan something to answer, something to meet with apology, explanation, proof. But Noah sounded far away in a way no map could measure, like he had already stepped out of the life they had shared and was calling back only because some gentle part of him wanted to close the door softly. Ethan stood in the closet with Noah's unfinished letter in his hand, surrounded by empty hangers and the faint smell of cedar blocks. "I listened," he said, and the words felt too small. Noah was quiet for so long Ethan could hear the wind on his end of the line, the hollow rush of traffic in the distance, and something else, maybe a train announcement muffled by rain. "You listened after I left," Noah said. Ethan pressed his free hand against the wall. "Tell me where you are." "No." It was a simple answer. Not cruel. Not dramatic. Just final. Ethan had cross-examined hostile witnesses who shook, shouted, lied, and cried. He had handled judges who hated him on sight. But he did not know what to do with Noah's calm refusal. "Grant knows you found the emails," Ethan said carefully. "He sent me a message." "I know." Ethan went still. "What does that mean?" Another pause. Then Noah gave a small, tired laugh that had no humor in it. "It means he sent me one too. 3 days ago. While you were preparing closing arguments." Shame moved through Ethan so quickly it almost felt like heat. "Why did you not tell me?" "I tried." 2 words. Soft. Devastating. Ethan remembered Noah standing in the doorway of the study, wearing Ethan's old Columbia sweatshirt, fingers curled around the sleeve. He had said, "Can we talk after dinner?" Ethan had not looked away from the file. He had said, "Not tonight. This case decides everything." Noah had answered, "Right. Everything." At the time, Ethan thought he understood the sadness in his voice. Now he knew he had only named the surface. "Noah," Ethan whispered, I am sorry. I believe you. That should have comforted him. It did not. Noah continued. But I do not know what your sorry is supposed to do with what happened to me when I was standing alone in that hallway. Ethan closed his eyes. In the background, a woman's voice said something Ethan could not make out. Not a nurse. Younger. Familiar with him. Then Noah murmured, I am coming. Away from the phone. Ethan's grip tightened. Who is there with you? The silence changed. Ethan hated himself for hearing it, the instinctive alpha sharpness in his own question, the hint of possession he had no right to feel. Noah heard it too. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. Do not do that. I just need to know you are safe. You needed to know that last week. The line went quiet except for rain. Ethan swallowed the argument rising in his throat, the one that wanted to explain pressure, strategy, public scrutiny, the danger of Grant Mercer. All of it was true. None of it mattered enough. Are you safe? He asked again, softer this time. For tonight, Noah said. That is all I can promise. Let me send someone. Mara. A driver. Anyone you trust. Noah breathed out. The problem is not that I do not trust Mara. Ethan absorbed the blow because it was deserved. Before he could answer, the phone vibrated against his ear with an incoming alert. He lowered it just enough to see a news headline spreading across his screen from a legal gossip account. Ethan Caldwell's Omega assistant accused of leaking Mercer evidence after secret affair rumors surface. Beneath it was a blurred photo of Noah leaving the service elevator, one hand braced against the wall, his face pale beneath the fluorescent light. Ethan's vision narrowed. He heard Noah inhale on the other end, as if he had seen it too. On the screen, the first comments were already appearing. Some called Noah a liar. Some called him a gold digger. Some said an Omega assistant should have known his place. Ethan felt the old professional instinct rise, cold and efficient, but beneath it was something uglier, the knowledge that silence had taught the world how to misunderstand Noah. They found me, Noah said, barely above a whisper. Then the call disconnected. Ethan did not remember crossing the room. One moment he was staring at the headline, and the next he was at his desk, laptop open, phone on speaker, Mara's voice cutting through the apartment with a steadiness that barely covered her anger. The story is already everywhere, she said. Legal blogs, gossip pages, 2 local news stations. Someone fed them the photo and framed Noah as the leak. Ethan refreshed the page. The comments were worse than the headline. Strangers with no faces called Noah ambitious, unstable, manipulative. They turned his silence into guilt and his relationship with Ethan into a scandal. Ethan had seen reputations destroyed in public before. He had done it himself, politely, with clean language and perfect timing. Now he watched it happen to Noah and felt something inside him go very quiet. Take it down, he said. Mara exhaled. I am trying. But Grant's people are pushing it hard. Ethan looked at the blurred image of Noah in the service hallway, one hand pressed to the wall, alone under ugly fluorescent light. Then we push harder. Ethan. Mara's voice softened. You know what that means. He did. It meant breaking privilege lines carefully enough not to destroy the real evidence. It meant admitting the firm had mishandled Noah's reports. It meant giving every rival in New York a knife and pointing to the place it would hurt most. 10 hours ago, Ethan would have calculated the damage. Now he only saw Noah's pale face and the way he had said, "They found me." Schedule a press statement, Ethan said. No firm language. No vague denial. My name. My face. Mara went silent. You are going to burn your own case. No, Ethan said, staring at the empty side of the closet. I already did that when I let him stand alone. By late afternoon, rain had turned the courthouse steps slick and dark. The same reporters who had praised Ethan the day before now swarmed around him with sharper eyes. He stood beneath a black umbrella he did not bother to hold properly, water sliding from his hair to his collar. His suit was immaculate, but he looked less like an undefeated lawyer and more like a man who had finally met the cost of winning. Cameras lifted. Questions flew. Ethan ignored all of them until the noise thinned enough for one sentence to land. Noah Bennett did not leak evidence, he said. His voice was low, clear, and without performance. He found evidence I failed to take seriously. A murmur moved through the crowd. Ethan continued. Any suggestion that he acted out of obsession, instability, or personal revenge is false. He was competent. He was careful. And he was right. Someone shouted. Were you romantically involved with your assistant? Ethan's jaw tightened. There it was. The trap. The question he had dodged for 2 years was silence, timing, professionalism, excuses dressed as protection. He could almost hear Noah beside him, not asking for a grand declaration, only for the dignity of not being erased. Ethan looked straight into the nearest camera. Noah Bennett was my partner, he said. And I was too cowardly to say that when it would have protected him. The rain grew louder on the umbrellas. For a second, even the reporters seemed to forget their next question. Then Ethan reached into his coat and removed the silver tie clip Noah had given him. He had worn it today for the first time in months. He placed it on the edge of the podium, small and bright against the dark wood. Noah once told me a courtroom is not the only place a person can tell the truth, Ethan said. I am telling mine now. Across the river, in a bus station outside Newark, Noah watched the live stream on a cracked phone screen while a paper cup of tea cooled between his hands. The hood of his sweater shadowed his face, but it did not hide the tears he refused to let fall. Beside him, an older beta woman from the shelter touched his elbow gently and said, Is that your alpha? Noah looked at the screen, at Ethan standing alone in the rain, finally saying the words he had once needed. He closed his fingers around the little velvet box in his pocket, the one holding Ethan's apartment key and the silver ring Ethan had never dared to call a bond. For one brief, painful second, Noah imagined standing up, calling him, letting the apology arrive while it was still warm from the rain. Then the bus driver announced boarding for Boston, and the woman beside him squeezed his elbow again, not pushing, just reminding him that leaving was still allowed. No, Noah whispered. Then, after a long silence, he stood as his bus began to board. Not anymore. Ethan did not go home after the press statement. He returned to the office because it was the only place in the city built to reward men like him for not feeling. The lobby security guard avoided his eyes. 2 associates stopped talking when he passed. On the 38th floor, the firm looked exactly the same as it always had, polished glass, soft carpet, expensive silence, but the air had changed. Yesterday, Ethan Caldwell had been the safest name in New York law. Tonight, he was a liability with wet hair and no defense prepared. Mara found him in Noah's empty cubicle, sitting in the visitor chair because he could not bring himself to sit where Noah had sat. The ceramic fox was still on the desk, its tiny red scarf tilted to one side. Ethan straightened it with one finger. The gesture was so small Mara looked away. Grant's team is threatening sanctions, she said. The managing partners want you in the conference room. Ethan nodded but did not move. On Noah's monitor, someone had taped a sticky note to the black screen. It was old, the adhesive nearly gone. Ethan recognized Noah's handwriting. Please remind Ethan to eat something with actual nutritional value before he becomes 70% espresso. Mara followed his gaze and gave a tired laugh. He wrote that after you tried to call vending machine almonds a balanced dinner. Ethan remembered that night. He had been preparing for a federal hearing, running on coffee and stubbornness. Noah had appeared at the office at 10:30 with takeout soup, a plastic spoon, and the firm expression of a 25-year-old Omega prepared to argue nutrition law with a trial attorney. Ethan had complained. Noah had ignored him. Then, when no one was looking, Noah had rested his hand briefly against the back of Ethan's neck and said, You are allowed to be a person after business hours. Ethan had wanted to kiss his wrist. Instead, he had said, After this hearing. There had always been another hearing. Another client. Another reason to postpone being human. Mara placed a folder on the desk. Lily Moore's sister called. She saw your statement. She is willing to talk. Ethan opened the folder slowly. Inside was a printed email Noah had tried to send him 6 days before the verdict. The subject line read, Please read this before you decide. It had never reached his inbox. Not because Noah had failed to send it, but because Grant's outside consultant had flagged it through a vendor account, burying it in the firm's spam quarantine. Ethan read the first line and felt the room narrow. Ethan, I know you think I am scared because I am an Omega, but I am scared because I recognize him. He kept reading. Noah had not written like an assistant building a case. He had written like someone trying not to fall apart. He explained that Grant had attended a charity clinic where Noah volunteered years earlier, before Noah met Ethan. Grant had cornered vulnerable Omegas with contracts, settlements, favors wrapped in threats too polished to prove. Noah had never been his victim in the way the rumors claimed, but he had seen enough to know Lily was telling the truth. He had tried to say it without sounding emotional. He had tried to be useful. He had tried to be believed. Near the end, the sentences grew less careful. I do not need you to fight everyone for me. I just need you not to make me feel foolish for being afraid. Ethan folded the email with both hands slowly, precisely, because if he moved too fast, something inside him might finally break in a way the office could see. The managing partners called twice. He let the phone ring. Then Mara's cell buzzed. She checked the message and went still. Ethan. He looked up. Her face had lost all color. A shelter contact told Mara Noah had asked where to buy prenatal vitamins. The word did not explode. It landed softly. That was worse. Ethan looked down at the ceramic fox, at the tiny red scarf Noah had made for something that did not need warmth, because Noah gave warmth to everything near him. In the black reflection of the dead monitor, Ethan saw himself sitting in the chair of the person who had loved him quietly enough to disappear. Outside the conference room, the partners were waiting to ask him to repair the firm's image. Inside Noah's cubicle, Ethan finally understood there was no image left worth saving if the truth had to be buried beneath it. He picked up the ceramic fox, then put it back exactly where Noah had left it. Some things were not his to carry away. New York kept shining, bright and indifferent, while Ethan Caldwell finally understood that Noah had not only left with evidence. He had left carrying a future Ethan had never made room for. Ethan found Noah a week later in a town on the Massachusetts coast, the kind of place where winter made everything honest. The houses were small, the sidewalks salted white, and the ocean looked gray enough to keep secrets. He did not find him through a private investigator. He found him because Lily Moore's sister remembered Noah mentioning a shelter near the water, a place that helped Omegas start over without asking them to explain why. Ethan drove 4 hours with Noah's unopened voicemail playing in his mind and a bag of groceries on the passenger seat because he had no idea what a proper apology looked like, but he knew Noah had been buying crackers again. The closer he got to the coast, the quieter the roads became. Gas stations turned into bait shops. Glass towers became weathered porches with wind chimes. Ethan stopped once at a small grocery store and stood uselessly in the soup aisle for 8 minutes, reading labels like they were case law. Low sodium. Organic. Chicken noodle. Tomato basil. He bought all of them, then added ginger tea, saltines, apples, and a box of those lemon candies Noah used to keep for the doorman. The cashier, a woman with silver hair and a Boston accent, looked at the pile and said, "Somebody sick?" Ethan answered honestly. Somebody was. I was not paying attention. She did not ask anything else. She only put the cans in a double bag. He saw Noah through the window of a little used bookstore on Harbor Street. Noah stood behind the counter in an oversized cream sweater, shelving paperbacks with careful hands. His face was thinner. His hair was tucked behind one ear. He looked tired but not broken. That was the part that stopped Ethan at the door. Noah had built a small kind of peace without him. There was a kettle on the counter, a stack of children's books by the register, and a handwritten sign that said, "Please do not rush the cat." The cat was asleep on a chair, clearly in charge. Ethan almost laughed, and then almost cried, because Noah would have loved that sign. When the bell over the door rang, Noah looked up. For a moment, neither of them moved. Ethan had argued before federal judges with less fear than he felt standing 6 feet from the person he had failed to protect. Noah's eyes lowered to the grocery bag in his hand. "You brought soup," he said. Ethan looked down, ashamed by how small the offering seemed. "And ginger tea. Mara said it might help." "Mara talks too much." But Noah's voice softened on her name. Ethan placed the bag on the counter and stepped back, giving him space. That mattered. He could see Noah noticing it. Grant is being investigated, Ethan said. Lily's sister testified. The firm is cooperating. I am suspended while the bar reviews my conduct. Noah nodded slowly. I saw. Ethan swallowed. I am not here to ask you to come back. Noah's fingers tightened around the edge of a book. Then why are you here? The answer had sounded clearer in the car. Here, in front of Noah's tired eyes and the quiet curve of his guarded body, it became simple. Because you should not have to disappear from me to tell the truth. Noah looked away first. Outside, snow began to fall in small, uncertain flakes. Ethan reached into his coat and placed the velvet box on the counter. Noah's apartment key was inside, along with the silver ring Ethan had once been too afraid to name. I am returning this, Ethan said. Not because I do not want it. Because it should never have been something you had to carry alone. Noah opened the box, stared at it for a long time, then closed it with a quiet click. I loved you when you were kind in secret, he said. But I needed someone who could be kind when it cost him something. Ethan nodded. There was no argument against the truth. Noah rested one hand over his sweater, low and protective, not as an announcement, but as a boundary. I am going to keep this baby safe. I am going to keep myself safe. And right now, that means not going back to the place where I learned to wait quietly. Ethan felt the sentence settle over him, final and deserved. Will you let me help from far away? He asked. No pressure. No conditions. Medical bills, security, whatever you need. Noah studied him, searching for the old Ethan, the one who would turn help into leverage without meaning to. Send it through Mara, he said at last. She knows how to ask without making it sound like a contract. The smallest smile touched Ethan's mouth, gone almost immediately. She does. The bookstore cat woke, stretched, and sneezed so loudly that Noah gave a surprised little laugh. It was brief. It was beautiful. It was not for Ethan to keep. He stepped toward the door before wanting could make him selfish again. Behind him, Noah said his name. Ethan turned. Noah stood under the warm yellow light, one hand on the counter, the velvet box between them. I do not hate you, Noah said. Ethan closed his eyes for 1 second. Somehow, that hurt more than if he had. I know. Noah's voice was steady. But I am choosing me. Ethan nodded because the man he was trying to become would not punish Noah for surviving him. He walked out into the snow without looking back through the window. Months later, when the bar reinstated him under strict conditions, Ethan took fewer cases. He turned down clients whose stories sounded too polished to be true. He kept soup in his office refrigerator. And every December, he mailed one small box to a bookstore on Harbor Street, addressed through Mara, never signed as anything but Ethan. The first year, it was a knitted red scarf for the bookstore cat. The second, a stack of picture books. The third, a tiny navy blue tie clip no child would need for years. He never won Noah back. But he learned, slowly and painfully, that love was not always a verdict to overturn. Sometimes it was a door you had to leave open, even when the person you loved was right to walk through it without you.